For 7 long years, the ranch breathed with only one soul inside it, and that soul was Jacob Hale, a man worn down by the land he loved and the silence he could not escape, waking each morning before the sun, feeding horses that answered him with snorts instead of words, fixing fences that broke as often as his spirit did, living day after day beneath a sky that seemed endless yet empty, because once there had been laughter in that house. Once there had been a woman who filled the porch with songs and the nights with warmth. And when sickness took her, it took Jacob with it in a quieter way, leaving behind a man who learned how to survive but forgot how to live, until one afternoon, when the wind shifted and the desert carried a presence toward him, a figure standing near the dry creek bed like she belonged there, tall still, watching, not afraid, her dark hair braided tight with a single feather catching the light, her posture steady like the earth itself. And when Jacob approached with guarded caution, rifle lowered but hand ready, she met his eyes without challenge, introducing herself simply as Ayanna, Apache by blood, traveling alone after her people scattered under pressure from soldiers, hunger in a world that refused to make room for them, and something in her voice calm, grounded, unbroken, cut through Jacob's defenses. So instead of sending her away, he offered water, then shade, then finally a place to rest for the night, telling himself it was kindness, not need. And as evening fell, they sat by a small fire, the kind that warms without demanding attention, exchanging fragments of life rather than full truths. Jacob speaking of cattle and storms, Ayanna speaking of mountains and songs carried by elders, and though they did not sit close enough to touch, the space between them felt alive, charged with a quiet recognition neither could name, and when she looked at him, crossed the firelight and said she could see loneliness in the way he carried himself, like a scar worn under clothing. Jacob felt exposed in a way no man had made him feel before. Because she did not pity him or try to fix him, she simply saw him, and that night, lying awake beneath his own roof with another heartbeat nearby, he realized how long it had been since he had felt human instead of just alive. And if you feel drawn into this world of untold emotions and forgotten souls, take a moment now to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this survive through listeners who believe the past still has something to say. Days passed with the quiet rhythm of shared work and unspoken understanding, and Ayanna remained not as a burden or a guest but as a presence that belonged, helping mend fences with skilled hands, moving through the land like she understood its moods. And Jacob found himself talking more than he had in years, words coming slowly at first, then with growing ease, until memories long buried surfaced of love lost, of nights spent begging the stars for mercy, of choosing isolation because it hurt less than hope. And instead of turning away, Ayanna listened, never interrupting, never judging, and in return she spoke of loss too, of family taken by hunger and bullets, of being strong because weakness meant death. And as they shared these truths, the ranch changed, not in shape but in spirit, the air lighter, the nights warmer, the silence no longer cruel but companionable, until one evening when the sky burned orange and purple and the world seemed to pause. Ayanna stood beside Jacob on the porch and spoke, words that carried no temptation but deep understanding, telling him that the body remembers pain even when the heart grows tired of carrying it, that healing does not always come from solitude. And when she said softly, "Let me feel you tonight," it was not a demand or a promise of passion, but an invitation to closeness, to trust, to the simple act of not being alone. And Jacob, who had survived storms and gunfights but feared vulnerability more than death, found himself nodding, not because desire overcame him, but because truth did. And that night they shared warmth, presence, and breath, a quiet human connection that did not erase the past but honored it. And when dawn arrived, it brought with it a future Jacob had stopped believing in, one shaped not by loneliness but by shared strength. And as Ayanna prepared to continue her journey days later, neither spoke of endings or forever, because some connections are meant to change you, not own you. And as she disappeared into the horizon, Jacob stood taller than he had in years, knowing the ranch would never feel empty again, because he had learned how to feel once more. And if this story moved you, if you believe stories of healing, resilience, and the Wild West deserve to be told, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with the channel, because every subscription keeps these stories alive and brings more powerful journeys like this to your screen.